It's nice to be here with all of you today. I got the chance to visit here like 3 years ago, so it's been a while. Last time I was here, I was raising funds to be able to go to the Texas-Mexico border, and I worked there for 2 years. If you can switch that slide. Yeah, there we go. So you can see there, McAllen, the green star, is just below, is right at the border. And I worked there for 2 years. I worked at a school, I worked at a community center, I worked at a church. I absolutely loved all of the opportunities that I had to work there. Actually, I've got a long heritage in ministry and missions. My parents were missionaries in Bolivia when I was a kid, and also in Honduras. And so I've had so many opportunities to learn about God, about working for Him, doing His ministry in lots of different places. So it's been a blessing to work in ministry. Working at the border, I learned so much. I was able to help so much. And I didn't feel called back, but I would never take back those 2 years. It was amazing. You can see my students a little bit up there. Actually, go back just one more, sorry. My parents and me and my sister are down in the bottom picture. And then it's me with my students in the top 2 photos. I worked with mostly 5th through 8th grade, but at one point I was in every grade that they had at that school at the border. So I have a teaching degree, work with kindergarten through 8th grade. So they use me everywhere. It's a super tiny school. But we loved it. Worked at a Spanish church, so I got to really practice my Spanish. Worked on translating some materials for them and sang in Spanish in their services. Absolutely loved it. Then now you can go to the next slide. So God is calling me to a new place now, and it's going to use all of the gifts and abilities that He's taught me over the last few years. I'm going to Peru. And Peru, we just bought the tickets. I'm at 80% funded, which is absolutely astounding, which means at this point, I'm going. But there's still another 20% to go, and that 20% means the difference of how much I can do on there. It means the difference between me just going and being able to live there and do a minimal amount of teaching and traveling, to the extra 20%, meaning I can travel around, I can do the different ministries that we're hoping to accomplish. I'm only going for 6 months this time, but we're working toward me going long term. So there's processes to get my residency, and oh my goodness, there's so much paperwork to do. So it's quite a bit of work. But you can see by the box generally where I'm going to be. I'm in the lowlands, which is, there's not very many lowlands in Peru. Mostly Peru is highlands. Because of the Andes Mountains, but the lowland area is up in the northeastern section, and it's all jungle. It is very rural, and the only way you can travel from place to place for the most part is by boat. We use the roads like a river, or we use the river like a road, excuse me. Next slide. So you can see our team there. GoS3M is the program name, but it's all run by Crossroads Church. And we are partnering with the local Wesleyan Church of Peru. There on the left, you can see Pastor Lucy, and she is the person who started this whole venture. She, when she was a child, was evangelized by Scandinavian missionaries. I still to this day have absolutely no idea what mission organization they were with, but they came through and they shared the gospel with kids all through that area. Now this is over 50 years ago. They really haven't had missionaries come through the area since. This is very new territory. Pastor Lucy was saved during that time, and she went into the city to get her education and become a pastor. She joined the Wesleyan Church, and when she finished getting her pastorate, she is now going back to the same area she came from and reaching the people that that are her people. It's absolutely beautiful. She was able to raise the church from the ground up in Iquitos, and from there she's been working to open new churches, and this without any support whatsoever. This was 15 years ago. About 12 years ago, my pastor, Bob Ellis, found out about this ministry and decided to partner with her. And for the last 12 years, little by little, Crossroads Church has continued to support and help this ministry grow. Pastor Lucy was then joined about 3 years ago by Pastor Harrison. You can see him with the Go S3M shirt on. He and his wife and kids live right next door to her, and they switch off circuit riding preaching to 14 preaching points along the Marañón River, which is a source river to the Amazon. It's absolutely incredible what these two people have accomplished with God's help. Now, Pastor Bob Ellis is the one on the right now. And he works 2 churches in Texas right now. The one in San Antonio, Crossroads Church, but he's also he's overseeing yet another church that would have closed if not. So he is a very busy guy, but he is so involved in this ministry, and we can just see it exploding and growing. Go S3M, I wanted to just share a little bit about it with you guys. It is brand new, and it is only for this ministry. I'm the first missionary to ever go with this program. And we've always had volunteers for the last 12 years that it's been open. We've had teams go down for about 8 years now, I think, and we've been involved. But it is not a mission organization. It's just a program that's built to fill a need. And this need in Peru is big. And the Go, we're going to be going, right? S3 goes for sharing the gospel, strengthening churches, and serving communities. Those are the 3 S's. And then M is for mission. At first, I was not sure if I liked this name because it doesn't look like it means anything, but I really love the 3 S's that we stand for as a mission program. We're really focusing on those 3 things. But Crossroads Church is the one that heads everything. Next slide. If we can read this together, I'd really appreciate it. Let's read it together. Isaiah 6:8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I, send me." This summer was a very hard summer for me, really. I finished up at the Texas-Mexico border in the spring. Done with school, closed up all the ministry. They already have people to cover all of the positions that they needed. I didn't feel like I was called back, and I knew that they could have used me, but they didn't need me anymore. And I had no idea where God wanted me to go, but I knew He was calling me to something. I just knew it. I knew that He had something big coming around the pike. I just had no idea what it was. And that's a scary spot to be for 3 months, just waiting and praying and waiting. I went to visit a few different mission programs, see if it was what God wanted, knocked on a few doors, see if God would open any, and I just didn't feel like any of them was what He was asking me to do. They all needed help. They all needed somebody, but God was closing that door for me. And then He started bringing up this verse. All summer long, this verse kept coming up. Whom shall I send, and who will go for me? And I'm like, okay, pick me, right? But what for? I don't know. That's how I feel like Isaiah was. He had no idea what God was calling him for. It wasn't even really his calling, right? God's just asking for somebody to take the job, right? And Isaiah, just like all of my little students, when I say, I need a volunteer, they raise their hand and go, pick me, pick me, pick me, right? That's what Isaiah is doing. He's just so excited about getting involved and being a part of what God's doing, right? God needs somebody, pick me. And I felt that way. I felt like, okay, God, you're telling me you need me somewhere, but you haven't told me where yet. And lo and behold, God had been telling me all summer long. It was just the one thing that I just assumed He wasn't going to put me in that position. All summer long, I'd been going to Crossroads Church because it was my parents' new church. They moved down to Texas soon after I did and moved to San Antonio. And so every time I went to visit them, I would go to this church, Crossroads Church. I would talk to Bob Ellis, and because I was working as a missionary, he always wanted to tell me about what they were doing in Peru. And I thought, wow, that's such a cool program. It's so awesome. They really need help, right? But, of course, I didn't think of myself at all. I was thinking they need a lot of help, like a lot of people to do this job. And it was definitely not on my radar. Never occurred to me that it would be my job. And Pastor Bob eventually came to me at the end of the summer and he says, Esther, I feel so sure that this is for you, that this is what you are supposed to do, that I will pay for your trip to go down. And I'm like, free trip to Peru? Sure. So I went down for a week, and by the end of the week, I was sure too. I was scared to death, because it's a huge job. There's just so much that there's potential to do there. Absolutely astounding how much potential. And I still am scared. But God never calls us to something that He doesn't have already planned. And already He's there. And He's going to take care of me there. I just need to say yes. And so that's what I did. I've been raising support for about 5 months now. Started in October, worked my way through Pennsylvania area, went down to Florida for a little while, came back this way, went to New York, Illinois, Ohio, all over the place. And then in March here, I'm going to be going back to Texas to get things together, visit a few more churches down that way, and then I'm on the plane in May. So please pray for me. There's so much left to do before I go. It's crazy. Anyway, this verse just meant so much to me, and I thought, this is what sharing the gospel is about. Saying yes when God gives you opportunities. Strengthening churches is our second main goal. We really, really focus on this because it's not just about growing, it's not just about planting the church and letting it lie, right? We need to strengthen the church, build it up. Let's read the first one together. 1 Corinthians 3, 6, and 8. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. The one who plants and the one who waters have a common purpose. I love reading about Paul's work. Paul was the first missionary that we know of, and he traveled the whole world at the time, right? During their time, it was the whole known universe. And he traveled all over. He did so much work, and his gift was evangelism. He could just work with anybody and share about Jesus with them. And he needed people to come up behind him, after him. He was a good planter. He was a good starter of ministry. But he needed people to come up and water what he had started. He needed people to come up after him and disciple the people in the church and help them to learn what it was to be a part of the community of Christ and be in relationship with Christ and be the best Christians they could be, to build up the church. And Apollos was one of those people who came and did that. So he planted, then Apollos would come and water the church and help it to grow. But God is the one who does the growing. And we're seeing that in Peru by leaps and bounds. Some of the churches we've just recently built have had to add on to their buildings because they can't fit everybody in the building. It's brand new, starting out ministry, and we already have more than we can handle. Absolutely incredible. Let's read Acts 2, 42 and 47. Christians devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayer, praising God, and day after day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. I always like Acts. Acts is just really cool because it's about the start of the church, the beginning of the first church, and how they made mistakes, but they really, really followed Christ and did the best they could to be in a relationship with Him. And we can see that as they work as a community. I've been really struck by what community means lately. As a single missionary, it can be really easy to get involved in my ministry, what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's individualistic, but that's not how God made the church, right? The church is meant to be a group of people that work together to accomplish so much more than we can on our own through Christ. And we can see it here, what they did to be a community. The first thing is, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. Now, we don't have any more apostles living with us. They've all passed away, but they left their word with us, right? The writings, Jesus' writings, all of the different things in the Bible that we can study. And we have our pastors that we can listen to on Sunday and learn from that spends time in Scripture. So we can still do that. And fellowship, they spent time together. I mean, if you don't spend time with the people, you're not going to be friends, right? You have to be around each other to grow with each other. To the breaking of bread and prayer. They spent time eating together, praying together, probably working together. They spent time together. And probably the most important one, praising God. I'm specifically thinking of a story in Acts where a group of the apostles were preaching, and the Sanhedrin, the group of Jews that are really important, pulled them in and said, you're not allowed to talk about Jesus anymore. We don't want to hear anything about it, and you're not allowed to tell anybody else about it. And then they sent them away. And the first thing they do when they get out is go to the most public place they can find in Jerusalem and share about Jesus. Right? They know what the consequences are going to be, but they do it anyway. And so they get dragged back in, and this time they're not only told not to speak about Jesus, they're flogged very, very badly. They're whipped to the point where they can practically not even walk anymore. And then they're sent home. And as they're hobbling back home, they're praising God. That is astounding to me, that level of praise. Because of persecution and because of their willingness to work together, and no matter how hard it got, even though they were persecuted and suffered terribly, because of that close-knit community, they were able to accomplish incredible things through Christ. God added to their number daily those who were being saved because people outside the church saw them and what they were doing and how they were responding to situations and how it never broke them apart. It made them closer. People out there want that. And if we continue to emulate that in the church, people will continue to come because God bless it. Strengthening the church is super important in Peru because we have people coming, people that want what we're offering. And we need to help them to be able to be true Christians and part of the community of Christ. Serving communities. That's our third main goal, our third main focus that we really try to work on. And if we can read this one together. I know, you all think of it. I'm a teacher, we gotta do this. James 2:15-17. If a brother or sister is naked or lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm, and eat your fill, and yet you do not supply their bodily needs, what is the good of that? So faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead. We can't just say to people, God will take care of that, or I'll pray for you, right? Most of the time, God provided you to take care of that issue. Now, there's obviously things that we can't do anything for. Illnesses and things that we can pray for them for and be there for them. But what I'm looking at here is what's called holistic ministry. It's when you care not only about someone's spiritual needs, but the whole person. You care about what they care about, and you care about them as a person. I always think when I read this verse of a friend of mine who told me a story about, he wasn't bragging on himself, this is how it went. He had moved into a new neighborhood, and he had a neighbor that all of his other neighbors warned him about, all right? So, he goes over to visit his neighbor, and he says, oh, just be prepared, the guy next to you doesn't like Christians. Okay, and then he goes to visit the other guy. The guy really doesn't like Christians. Don't even talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to you. Anyway, he goes over anyway, right? And he just says, hi, my name is... But before he even really gets started, the guy completely cuts him off and says, I don't want to talk to you. I know you're a Christian, and Christians are horrible people. And apparently he had some terrible situation in his past that caused some major damage in his life. And so my friend went home. He prayed for the guy. That's all he could do. That's all he knew to do. But one day he heard that this guy next door was sick. And, I mean, he already knows that guy would never let him into his house to help him. So he realizes that that guy's lawn is getting bad. And that's the one thing he always noticed. That man, even though he was super grouchy, he didn't like anybody, he was always out there taking care of his lawn. And so he says, you know, it's one thing I can go do. So he goes over and he mows his lawn and he goes home. He doesn't do anything else, right? He doesn't knock on the door. He doesn't say, hey, look what I did, right? He just mows his lawn and goes home. And before too many days had passed, the guy actually comes over to my friend's house and says, thank you. I really appreciated what you did. And from then on, they had a relationship. Now, I don't know how the story ended. I don't know if he became a Christian or not. But I do know that they had a relationship and they were able to go beyond his struggle with Christians because he cared about him as a whole person, not just his spiritual needs. It's so exciting to see that we can take care of people and accomplish God's will, even if it's not able to do it in words, right? God's calling us to take care of the people around us and help them. And we can do that by serving inside of our communities in all different kinds of ways. God gives us all different gifts because he wants us as the Church of Christ to work as a unit to reach out to everyone. And we're starting to see that in Peru. First with Pastor Lucy, who was saved as a small child and went on to be a pastor because of it. And every person she's touched since then. My first priority when I get down there is going to be to work with the teams. We have teams already coming in June. I'm getting down there in May, which gives me 1 month to prepare. Currently, we do not have running water. We do not have any more electricity than enough to cover a few light bulbs being turned on. Maybe a fan, maybe. And like the running water is a major issue. We are able to buy water in town, but we have to get it shipped into whatever area we're working in. And that's the only clean water we have access to. So bit by bit, I will be working on improving those situations. And whatever funds I raise, a lot of that is going to go straight into a water system of cisterns, and eventually we're hoping to get a well in. That's hope for the future. It's not going to be right now. But my hope is to have privacy available and water for the teams coming by June, which right now we don't have either. And the first team comes in June, and then bam, 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 we have 1 to 2 teams per month until September. And then I will come back in October and finish raising support, finish visiting churches and sharing about this ministry, and then hopefully God will open the door for me to go longer. So there's a lot that needs to be done just for this time, but there's a lot we're hoping to do in the future. There's so many things that are possibilities for the future. You can see our building there on the right. It is about half finished, and they're already using it for 4 services a week. I was astounded. It's leaky, it's not even done yet, and they're already using it because they don't have another place to have services in out there. And Pastor Lucy is thrilled about it. Over the moon thrilled. Every time she looks at that building, she smiles. Because it is going to be used not only for 4 services a week, it is also used for ministries that we're trying to accomplish. The main one being pastoral training. In order for Pastor Lucy and Pastor Hedson to continue their ministry of church planting, we need to get pastors into the churches they've already planted. And so we're already working on that process bit by bit. We have a few lay pastors that are already in those churches. We're trying to finish their training in order for them to be full pastors in their churches and be able to help build up the church like we want to before we move on. And so we already have 16 places we're working, and we're working on building more. Iquitos is already on its feet and working on its own. Now is where we're working out of, and we have 14 little preaching points along the river. And this is we're going to be our community center, our housing area, like I said, pastoral training, and eventually I want to do kids ministry too. About half of every single church we have is made of kids. Half of the students, or half of the people in the church are kids. and they have no children's ministry specifically for them. They still include them in the services, they try to provide something, but in Nalta, and Nalta has most of our supplies right now, they have one coloring book for the kids that has Bible stories in it. So I'm working on providing supplies, getting things together for that, to improve that, but eventually we want to set up a whole curriculum that will make it easy for people that have no training in children's ministry to still do something with the kids. So there's so much to do. The next one, like I said, is kids ministry. You can see them using the coloring pages. It's beautiful that they have that, but we want to provide so much more than we can with help. Crossroads Church has partnered with them, and at this point we're providing about half of Lucy and Hedgeson's salaries so that they don't have to work full-time plus do this ministry. All right, church planning is a full-time job, but they're also doing something else in order to feed their families too. God has provided and provided and provided, and He will continue to provide. But it's just astounding how much they've been able to accomplish with limited resources. And what more could they do with more? Next slide. Okay, so how you guys can help with this? There is so much you can do. First of all, you can pray. We need all the prayer we can get. James 5:16 says, "The prayer of the righteous is powerful and effective." Each of you praying means we have more help. I'm not kidding. Prayer is huge. It is not just coincidence that I have traveled all over the U.S., both this time and last time I raised support, and have never had an accident. It is not a coincidence that whenever I am sick as a dog and I have a service, I am able to still speak. And I have no problems while I'm speaking. God is hearing your prayers, and God is taking care of me, and He's continuing to take care of this ministry. Please pray for Pastor Lucy and Pastor Hedgeson and their families, because they do this year-round. We've had volunteers go down, we've had teams go down, but never more than 6 months before. They do it all year around, on their own a lot of the time, with minimal supplies and support. The other thing you can do is give. I still need another 20% to be able to personally go and do all of the things we already have hopes to do just for the 6 months. And then we also need help with supplies and all kinds of things we'd like to accomplish down there, plus the water systems. Eventually we're looking into doing wells, but right now we're just looking at getting generators and pumps and some type of filtering system set up. So there's a short-term plan and a long-term plan, and we would be interested in you getting involved in any of those. My pastor would also be interested in any teams that would be interested in going. I will warn you, it is not the Ritz, right? Right? This is super, 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 like, camping, but like hardcore camping. I hopefully will have water and privacy available for you. That's all I'm promising. And that is with God willing, I have that. And then going. I am a firm believer that any Christian who goes anywhere to share the gospel with anyone is a missionary. You can all be missionaries in your area, wherever you have an influence. And even if you don't think you have much of an influence, you have more than you know. You know people that your pastor probably doesn't know, that I will never meet. But if we leave it for the pastors and the missionaries to do all of the sharing and the evangelism, it's not going to happen. We can only do so much. As the Church of Christ, as the community of Christ, we are capable of accomplishing everything that God has asked of us. Sharing the gospel with everyone to the ends of the earth. And that starts here at home. So I encourage you and I challenge you to go into your area and to do what God is calling you to do. I have no idea what that calling is. Maybe you don't even know yet. But I promise you, God has a specific plan for your life and a very specific purpose to what He wants you to do. And it'll be awesome. Thank you so much. I have prayer cards and newsletters. The newsletters in the back, if you want to sign up for them, they're about quarterly. I send them out, and it just helps you to be able to pray for me better so you know what's going on. Please help yourself. Thanks.